Every kid has a great story to tell. Have one? Well, we're listening. Send your best story to the New Indian Express's Bookworm Junior Summer Stories Contest, and you could just end up becoming an author over the summer. What are you waiting for? Get writing.
Hindustan Institute of Technology and Science. Take your first step toward a future in excellence.
If you can't have debate and dissent, then is it truly a democracy? Well, that's a question that, a lot of people today have. And that's a question that we're going to be asking very, very young, agile, energetic debaters from across the country's schools today. This is the New Indian Express's Let's Debate. Thank you very much for joining us. As you know, we're calling this India's largest inter-school virtual debate competition. We've had over 200 students. We have over 100 schools. And we're having a whole lot of energy coming in and so many perspectives. And I know that you're having a great time watching this. Before we go to today's debate, let me introduce the motion. This one is very hotly contestable because all across the country, every day we're hearing of protests in the middle of a pandemic. And if that isn't surprising, I don't know what is. The motion for the day: students should have the right to protest for just causes when in school. That's right. It's a bit of a contentious topic, but I can't wait to see what our debaters, both for and against the motion, have to say. Let me very quickly introduce our two judges for the day. Let me welcome my friend and colleague, Adarsh Bankappa Basavaraj. Adarsh, of course, is the coach. He's a life coach. He's a hypnotherapist. He's a psychologist. He offers counseling. He's an L&D trainer. He's a management consultant. He wears a whole lot of hats. But what he is a fantastic advisor. He's your go-to person when you need life advice, career advice, and anything. And we absolutely love having him here. Adarsh, thank you for joining us. Let me also join my friend and colleague, Diana Sahu. Diana's talking to us from Odisha. She's our principal correspondent and chief sub-editor. She's been with us for over 10 years at the New Indian Express. And she writes effusively on education. She writes on art, culture. She writes on gender. And she's a multiple award-winning journalist. It's wonderful to have you with us, Diana. Thank you for joining us. We have a full house today, and I'm very, very happy to announce that it's going to be an exciting debate. I can feel it because these guys have been here. They've been brimming over with that topic. So without further ado, let me invite our first speaker to speak for the motion. Let me invite Hitansh Bhutani. Hitansh?
Human beings are made of not much. Our lives are decidedly simple. The lot of us could be cramped up in a sugar cube if not for the empty space of the atomic model. In 2040, statistically, there will not be anyone alive on the face of this planet who has experienced the discovery of sliced bread in their lifetime. So insignificant is the human life, not only because of our crumbling biological limits, but also for our foolish emotional instability and complete disregard for progress. Good evening, one and all present in this graceful abode where all thought itself resides. I'm Hitansh, and I would love to discuss with you today why every negative word I have said thus far is absolutely false. Belief, ladies and gentlemen, the only segment of ourselves that we find truly unique. Does God exist? Should women be allowed to vote? Does the education system entirely fulfill the wisdom necessary for survival in the real world? Does pineapple belong on pizza? These are the pressing matters that we should unfortunately not be discussing today. However, we will be discussing the importance of one's belief for the progress of a species as a whole. It is our thoughts that define us, that make us who we are, and allow for broader thinking. Thought is an undeniable wild card, an undeniable right. Students are no less deserving of something so basic, defining, essential as thought. But unfortunately, thoughts cannot make a difference unless expressed. Expression of thought is the most basic human proof, a captcha per se, being able to share how you perceive the world in its glory and what you believe is correct is certainly a whole lot more effective than selecting what images have traffic lights in them. Protesting is such a method of expressing oneself. Mahatma Gandhi was one such advocate of protesting against an action that caused him harm. Ahimsa, non-violence, was a crucial condition for protesting, though. Climate change protests by children in Germany have caused a 20% fall in the predicted worsening of the climate. With the exponentially growing amount of issues that the young generation of our nation has to cope with, exam and career pressure, maintaining a standard with peers, and steadily worsening mental health, we can hardly agree that they do not deserve a right to voice their concerns to repeatedly indifferent governments. Democracy in its essence is the phenomenon of the people running the nation. What better way to exercise democracy than the future pillars of the earth themselves blessing the land by voicing their concerns? There is also no better way to build up leadership quotient than to, well, lead. With experience comes more concrete belief, agreed. But turning off anyone's brain is not excusable, regardless completely in any circumstance, be it gender, race, caste, religion, education, or as the matter stands, age. Thank you, and proud to propose.
Thank you so much, Hitansh. When some people speak, it moves you. When others speak, it makes you laugh. And, when some others speak, it makes you think. I think you managed to roll all of that in about just under 4 minutes. So congratulations.
Thank you so much. It means a lot to me. Thank you.
All right. Could I now invite to open the defense? Speak against the motion. Can I now call upon Yashas against the topic?
Hi, I'm Yashas and I'm from Modern Public English School. And since I'm against the topic, and my topic is about the students should have the right to protest against the just causes when in school. And it's not so easy to tell about this topic, since my feedback is about this. Like, you are not to give introduction that many students don't feel comfortable in their school environment due to teachers or the management or the infrastructure depends on the school. So in the recent, now I want to tell the examples like online classes were held and it was not so good for students, and nowadays exams are coming up and the students are not knowing very well about the topic, and many cases are going in the schools. So like this, I will continue with my points. So mainly, students are dependent on teachers when it's the schooling age, like from foundation, from first standard to 10th standard. Main students are dependent on the teachers. So when they are dependent, the teachers will play a crucial role in their life in the schooling age. So I request teachers to give more potential and teach in a very kind manner for the students to be understand. And nowadays, in my one of my to give an example, one of my friend in his school teacher, she was not explaining correctly, and the student was not knowing correctly. And when he went against her, so he complained to his principal, and it was very successful that the teacher told him correctly, and it was very useful. So how my opponent told, like, we should go in a peaceful way and we should correct go against it. So I like to tell that going against is not being bad. You can correct and you can develop the school's infrastructure. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yashish. That was short but sweetly put. Could I now request Arpita Patra, to speak against the motion?
Much pleasant afternoon, everyone, honorable judges, and my dear competitors. Myself, Arpita Patra of Class 9, Odisha Adarsha Vidyalaya, Sarapada, Keonjhar, Odisha. As we know, the given topic is students should have the right to protest for just cause when in school, and I am going to say against this motion. Well, the topic clearly talks about students and politics. It's directly asking, should student enter politics? And my answer is no. I wouldn't say that politics is a dirty game, but it also not a good game for students to play ever. Schooling is the most important and fundamental stage of one's life where the young mind explore their talent and passion and choose a career path. In that crucial point, if a student get indulged in strikes, procession, demonstration, protest, then he or she will lose the real purpose of life and goes astray. Participation in protest thus spoils a student's career. Protesting in school has a bad impact on education and academic session. Education forms character, strengthens minds, and makes us independent. It makes a person a right thinker and an able decision maker. But while protesting in school, students lose the ability to take right decision. They don't focus in their studies. Take the example of the most famous personalities of the world, Mark Zuckerberg, the founder of Facebook, the great Einstein, Ramanujan, and Vivekananda. They were the students who followed their passion and did something commendable for the mankind. If they had protested in school for just and unjust cases, then they would never have achieved such great feat. If students are allowed to protest in school for any cause, growing up, they will become more valiant. And it is rightly said that those who make peaceful revolution impossible make violent revolution inevitable. They will not think of solution to any problem. Rather, they will just come forward and protest. Protesting has a severe impact on time that is spent in protest or strikes or demonstration could be used in a fruitful way or in a very better way for other important things. Students forget the moral values of life. They don't respect anybody and don't follow any rules and regulations. This leads to disobedience. They defile the surrounding of the school. This creates a negative impact on the mindset of the young students, no matter how peaceful a protest is or intends to be. By the very nature of the word, a protest is a negative. Moreover, strikes and protests may cause injury to the students. Accidentally, they may end up hurting others. So we should always remember one thing, that sometimes peace is better than being right. So I would say that instead of protesting, we should learn how to be calm and how to deal with the situation in a smarter way. Protest is not always the solution to all problems. Students should no doubt inculcate leadership qualities. They should raise their voice for unjust and wrongdoings. But before going for protest or strikes or any other violent activities, they should think twice. They should try and settle things in peace first. They should always try to be a good citizen, then a good student. So lastly, I would like to say that never change by fighting the existing reality to change something. Never change by fighting the existing reality to change something. Build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. That's all. Thank you and have a great day ahead.
Thank you, Arpita. I often feel constrained that I have to sit in this chair and I have this thing in my hand, and I have a pen as well, so I can't really move my hands as much as I'd like. But top marks for the amount of expression you put into that. I thought that was fantabulous, and I know others also agrees with me. All right. Could I now invite our next speaker to speak for the motion? May I invite Sweetie Jain? Sweetie, if you're good to go.
Let me introduce myself. I'm Sweetie Jain from Visakhapatnam, and I'm here for the motion. And we have it is a very confusing topic as we are students of 9th and 10th. It is rightly said that students do have right to protest, because if they protest, they put out their feelings to their teachers. Their teachers know their feelings. When your teacher knows your feelings, she moves you in the right way if you're in a wrong track. It has many advantages. I'm sorry if Arpita feels bad, but you have been telling that protesting is not good. But sometimes protesting is the only way Because when you protest for a bad thing, like if you protest for increased corruption, that's a good way. That's helping our country to get developed. When the students protest, as they are going to be the next generation, when the students are at a clear base, they are like when the students go at a clear base, they make the country even develop. So I think that we must protest for just causes in school. Because when we have a habit to protest, not for every time, but for just cause, it is good. Because when you don't protest for the just cause, some other may come and suppress you. Even the students. If you don't put out your feelings in front of your teachers, you get sophisticated in yourself, and that's not good. When you get sophisticated, you get nervous. That's not at all good, because if you're nervous, you will not be at all. You will not be able to speak in public. And nowadays, public speaking is must. Everyone must have public speaking. No matter who he is or who she is. Let it be anyone. Public speaking, it has become must because now everything is going online, digital, virtual. You may enroll for anything. In that, you may get a chance to speak. But if you be nervous and sophisticated with your feelings, you will never get a chance to speak. So, as given, I'm for the motion, and I would like to tell that we have the right to protest because it is in the constitution also. We have the right to speak. We have the freedom to speak. When we have the freedom, we have to take its advantage in a good way, not in a bad way again. So this is what I wanted to tell. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sweetie. I think that the constitutional argument is very, very pertinent. Right to dissent and right to protest has been bandied about for so many years, but I think it is a constitutional right, and it's something that we have to think about very seriously. Could I now invite to speak against the motion Vrishab Anurag Venkatraghavan? Vrishab?
Let me paint you a picture. Your parents work hard to get you into a good school so that you're set on track to get into a good college and get a good job. And when you're in school, your primary and only duty is to study. School students are at a vulnerable age where raging hormones could lead them to align with unsavory causes that lead to violent protests. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Rishabh from the proposition, and I am here to tell you why students should not have the right to protest for causes, however just they may be, when in school. In order to prove my case today, I will be taking you to 3 aspects of how protesting affects the lives of students. Without further ado, let us delve into the first aspect of consideration. For education to be effective, it has to be continuous, rigorous, and uninterrupted. Any kind of protest, including those for social causes, interfere with regular classes. Take the Fridays for Future movement against climate change. Students around the world participated in movements against climate change, like I mentioned. And this is a crucial cause and it does need awareness, but there's been so much academic disruption in the lives of these students. And to what end? They protested outside their schools for weeks on end. While everyone knows Greta Thunberg, can we actually name the changes that have been brought about as a result of this movement? People may take notice for a while, she might even get global coverage, but after that, humans move on with their lives. If you look at the millions of nameless people who spend so much time protesting, they could be stuck with incomplete schooling or inadequate grades. Are Harvard or Columbia going to give them admission based on their activism credentials? They'll still be looking for SAT scores and AP marks. So all that time spent protesting outside schools, parliaments, or even in the UN General Assembly is probably not going to help any of them. Secondly, the safety of students is paramount, and more often than not, protests turn violent. Invariably, if we find that students do not have the maturity to hold back their emotions, they get so riled up about social causes that they end up damaging government property, buses and buildings included. And the police or government are bound to strike back. Do students really need to put themselves in the line of fire? In the history of protests, you'll find innumerable instances of protests gone awry. There are very few cases where the protesters are peaceful. More often than not, the protesters start off peacefully. But an hour or so into the protest, they feel like their voices are not heard and they ramp up their protest. A stray act of anger sparks large-scale violence. This is human nature. Do you want school students to be exposed to this kind of violence? Not to mention the effects a failed protest may have on the mental health of students, especially those who have become fanatically involved in their protests. Moving on to my final point, When students end up with a disciplinary black mark in their records because of a protest gone wrong or an arrest, it could have a detrimental effect on their future. Allow me to explain. Maybe they want to get an overseas education. I highly doubt that the visa officer would look kindly upon the arrests that happened in the 11th grade because they joined a protest. A student need not have been the person who vandalized public property or turned violent, but they were part of the protest all the same, and that is enough to stamp upon them the dreaded black mark. Take another case. How about a university in the UK, where a student involved in protests has applied for higher studies? What if the university Googles their names and find out that they've been arrested in a student protest while in school? I have an inkling the admission authorities would not look too kindly upon this. You will find that while students protest for a social cause sounds great, it's not exactly something you can put on a resume for the future. I have put forward today points showing the importance of protecting students from the turbulent atmosphere of protest, and I believe that these points must win the debate. Thank you.
And much like you, your points stand up quite as well. Thank you so much, Rishabh. Could I now invite to speak for the motion Ajay Bhatt?
Myself Ajay Bhatt, and today I'm gonna speak for the topic students should have the right to protest for just causes when in school. Right to protest peacefully is enshrined in the Constitution of India. Democracy is run by the people and is for the people. Children are an integral part of it. Not allowing to protest amounts to subduing the voice, which is against the tenets of democracy. This form of subduing amounts in nipping in the bud, which means not allowing something to come out, not allowing something to speak out or express his views or ideas. New thoughts, new ideas, new perspectives must be encouraged no matter what. Today's children are tomorrow's citizens. School is a place where we imbibe culture and model a child. Allowing a child to speak out will allow the child to express his views, ideas, opinions on failures, likes and dislikes. The child might have brought about a new dimension about the problem at hand. The child might have as well made it easier for the problem to solve. If the proposal is good, then accepting the proposal might as well boost the child's confidence. But if the proposal is not good, then the child should be convinced and should be showed the right path. Right to protest also can lead to the development of the overall development of the child. Right to the protest or right to differ inculcates lateral thinking and may promote innovation too. It allows the child to accept what is right and raise voice against what is wrong. This will surely help the child develop his or her public speaking skills too. Promoting the right to protest will lead to the creation of society with individuals who never shy away to speak out. This leads to the creation of society who are brave and bold. This type of attitude, that is speak up attitude among children, will help them come up. They'll not tolerate something that's not right. This may also help overcome some of the social evils such as bullying, child labor, exploitation at its root. A bird in a cage will have no freedom. In the same way, children who are not allowed to speak are bonded and may not be able to blossom and are forced to adjust to the circumstances. Let's take an example. In recent times, school students have led their way to climate protests in Germany. These students have to be applauded for their courage and determination towards the climate. Hence, I would like to conclude by telling that a child must be given the right to protest for just causes when in school. A child must be given the right to express his views, express his thoughts on something. It might be advantageous sometimes too. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ajay. That was extremely well elucidated. Could I now invite Arush Sharma to speak for the motion as well?
I am Arush Sharma, and I stand before you today to support the motion that students should be allowed to protest for just causes when in school. Till 75 years ago, the people of India had no formal access to human rights. In 1950, the Indian Constitution came into effect, to make the government forever accountable to its citizens. One of the most important fundamental rights that it conferred on Indians was the right to peaceful protest. By not allowing students to protest, are we not denying them a fundamental right vital for their growth and development? Let us reflect for a moment on why this is such an important right. Under the leadership of Gandhiji, lakhs of Indians participated in movements such as Quit India and brought the British Empire down on its knees. Students boycotted schools and colleges. They were key to the success of these protests. Is it then right to turn our backs on the very ideals that have earned us this hard-fought freedom? In fact, all popular Indian politicians were student leaders who learned the art of leadership in these mass protests. Some of the most influential people who shaped the destiny of our country, such as Subhash Chandra Bose, Nitish Kumar, and Arun Jaitley, were all student leaders before they occupied positions of power. This is because success in life goes beyond textbooks. It is about life skills that allow us to succeed. Acquiring the skill to protest, which involves disagreeing peacefully, negotiating, working in a team, and influencing others, is one such essential skill. The earlier we learn it, the better it is for us. Far from being a luxury, for students who wish to pursue a career in politics, it is essential that they participate and lead protests and demonstrations while in school. Most of us swear by democratic principles, but we forget that democracy is a way of life, an ideal to strive for. A person cannot start practicing democracy overnight. He must be allowed to voice his views and protest from a young age. Are children not allowed to protest at home? Similarly, people must start participating in protests when they are in school. Only then will they be able to become responsible citizens who shape the future. Have you ever wondered why some of the most important movements in the world are led by students? Because for democracy to succeed, every section of society needs to come together, be it the traders, workers, farmers, or students. Students are educated and idealistic. They force their elders to look at things from a fresh perspective. If we curtail their right to protest for just causes, their only alternative would be violence and crime. The concept of adult franchise anyway denies the students the opportunity to vote. Imagine denying them the right to protest. This will have unwelcome consequences. The only path for expression of pent up feelings for the students will be violence. History is replete with such examples. Direct engagement with community issues allows students to identify matters of importance in the real world, develop empathy, and offer solutions. It is vital to acknowledge that not everything is best learned or understood within the four walls of a classroom. Attending a protest gives practical insight into pressing issues. This helps them to make educated decisions in the future, and it also helps in spreading awareness. Student-led protests do not hinder the education of their participants. On the contrary, students' education becomes more holistic. Plato famously said, one of the penalties of refusing to participate in politics is that you end up being governed by your inferiors. If we deny our students the right to protest for just causes, we are forcing them into a life of ignorance and perpetual servitude. Thank you.
That was extremely powerful. Thank you so much, Arush. Let me now invite to speak against the motion, Swayam Agarwal. Swayam?
The power of protest in the status quo is known to all. Protests might bring change for good, but they do create a lot of damage and havoc in the society, and therefore hamper peace, often leading to destruction as well as physical and mental harm. Greetings to the House at large. The motion at hand is that students should have a right to protest for just causes when in school. After hearing all the speeches, I have realized that there is a confusion in understanding the motion. People have talked about right to protest in general, whereas the motion clearly states right to protest when they are inside the school. Right to protest and the freedom of speech is a fundamental right guaranteed to all individuals, which includes students. Therefore, this topic is undebatable. On the other hand, this motion talks about students having the right to protest for just causes when inside the school campus. And when we talk about just causes are justified causes that may have direct or indirect effect on the students. Students should not be given the right to protest for the following arguments. Number one, students aren't mature enough to decide what is right and what is wrong for them. They are still in the learning stage where they are developing themselves. And that is why we have seen the case of universal adult franchisee as well, which gives the right to vote to only people who are 18 above 18 and not to students, because they're still not matured enough to decide what is right and what is wrong, and minds could be easily molded too. And protests, as we all know, are very complex in nature, and therefore this apart from causing harm to the environment or to the society, it would also cause physical and mental harm to the students as well. The second argument is that giving students the right to protest will disrupt all school proceedings in very large scale. We all know that protests are generally mass gatherings, and if right to protest is given to children, havoc and damage around the school would be given, because again, like I talked about, this is what protests can do, and they have the power to do so. And therefore, peace, which is very ideal in all schools, will be diminished, and school would not be school anymore. The third and most important argument is that it would hamper a child's education. School is a place for students to learn and enrich themselves. It is a place where they build themselves, because, as I earlier said, they're not matured enough. And therefore, if right to protest is given to children, the school, like I earlier said in my second argument, would be completely disrupted, and students would not learn in school. And therefore, the basic definition or the basic goal of schools, that is to develop students, and that is to make them, make them better humans in the future, would all be gone in vain. Therefore, to sum up, students should not be given the right to protest in schools for the following reasons. Number one, they are too young and not matured enough to carry such complex issues. Number two, this would lead to disruption in school proceedings. And number three, which is also the most important one, students' education will be hampered. With this, I would like to conclude. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was very vociferously argued. I must congratulate you on that. Mrunal, are you good to speak now?
Imagine that a person is not allowed to speak for his ideas in a democratic society. That's what we are doing to our students, not granting them the right to protest when in school. Hello, I'm Brunal Bhamre, and I am going to speak for the motion on the topic, should students have a right to protest for just cause when in school? Now, the students are also human beings, and they are also having rights. So why do not to give them a right to protest? Now, the right to protest is one of the most fundamental rights given in our constitution and the UN constitution. The right to protest includes that expressing our ideas, giving out flyouts, wearing expressive things, etc. Now, banning the student from expressing their ideas leads to an undemocratic theory. Now, the undemocracy or their chance will be taken away if they are not allowed to protest. If a child thinks that, if a group of child thinks that the certain things are not good or bad for the society, which even adults are not able to remove that, then they can protest. But in our country, there are very much less things like giving right to protest to children. And also that when in school, it is generally thought that the students should go to school only for studying and not for other reasons. They sometimes even co-curricular activities are not taken into importance, let far away the right to protest. So the students should be given the right to protest. The students can organize themselves in schools easily by going into school at the same time, organizing themselves and doing the protest in the school ground silently. But the students are prone to the threat from the schools. Now the schools say that they are disturbing the functioning of the school and thereby give them punishment. But you can also take up the formal process. If anyone denies the right to protest to any person, then the formal process can be set up with the help of a lawyer and with the help of human rights. So India should have the right to protest for the students when in school, because the school is the place where all our thoughts and ideas are shaped. And if we are not able to correct them or express them, then it is the grave error of the school management. So in my view, the students should have the right to protest. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Ronald. Could I invite to speak for the motion, Philip?
Philip, for you testimony regarding the topic. Students have the right to protest causes when in school. I am starting hopefully with the blessings of the judges and with the permission of my opponents. India is also known as the largest democracy, a country so uniquely different. Each person sitting right next to me and you has different cultures, mother tongue, etc. Such a huge diversified country is unified and held together by a constitution. A constitution includes and guarantees certain rights. One such right is the right to freedom of expression, and it also guarantees its citizens' right against exploitation. Each student of each school is also part and parcel of India, and hence they can and should protest and raise their concerns against unjust malpractices. Students are the basic building blocks of the school. A school is known for its students. Students form an integral part of any school, which points out that all students have the right to raise their concerns. Also, the aftermath of an unjust activity is borne by the students. So if the students cannot protest, then who will? Students, especially brilliant students like me, are the backbone of our country's future. It is very important that they are nurtured of care so as to build a spectacular future for our second home. Schools are often described as a second home, as children spend most of their time in schools. If in case they are all ill-treated and are raised to keep their mouth shut, it may scar the child forever. A child has a wonderful and colorful perspective towards life. They are most innocent in their essence. Adults should incorporate a child to especially the matters that relate to the spheres of their life. Gandhiji, the father of our nation, rightfully so told us to use the path of ahimsa to get freedom. I am also of the same opinion that non-violent methods can be adopted to raise our concerns, so that we do not get exploited again like the time of the British. Children should be brought up in such a way that they can or should raise their views against injustice activities. Only then will our country have powerful leaders that stand in the way of evil. Therefore, I conclude my debate speech by thanking the judges and my worthy opponents, and also by quoting Abraham Lincoln. Opponent to sin by silence when they should protest makes cowards of men. Thank you.
Thank you, Philip. I think it's fabulous that you made it back and you actually went through the entire thing. I think that's a lesson by itself, and I think that takes a lot of grit. So congratulations to you. Like I said, that brings us officially to the end of our first round. We're now we're horribly behind time, so we're going to rush into our rebuttals. Remember, everybody gets 2 minutes for a rebuttal. You get one shot at a rebuttal, so if you want to bring up objections or points, or you want to ask a question to multiple speakers in the opposition, you can do it at one shot. Don't do it one at a time. If somebody has said something to you, wait for your turn and then you can respond to them. At the end of it, if there's something else that you'd like to say, if the judges are okay with it, we'll let you go back at them. All right? Let's keep it clean. Let's not keep it mean. And we're going to follow the same order that we followed when we began. All right? And on that note, may I ask, Hitansh, do you have a rebuttal to make?
Yes, I do have a rebuttal, sir.
All right, go ahead. 2 minutes on the clock.
I'd first like to address Ms. Patra, where she clearly mentioned in her speech that she believes that protesting cannot be of any other form other than political. She used the word directly, that every time there is a protest, it has to be based on a political foundation. She believes that if there is ever a protest, then there has to be political motive behind it. I believe that this is not the case clearly, as there can be many other reasons that one might want to protest for. There are a lot of issues that we have in our modern society that definitely would, they could use a boost from each and every person available, be it a student, be it an adult, be it anyone. As long as you're supporting a just cause, I don't think that there should be any problem with that. And I don't think that all protesting has to be political. It's not a rule. She also mentioned that protesting is always negative. This generalization, I am against. You should not generalize an action such as protesting in any category. There can be a wide range. There is a spectrum of protesting that can be conducted. It can be in any way. There is no particular boundary. So there can always be a protest. There can always be a protest against a negative cause. So if there is a negative happening that is to be done, and if we are protesting against it, the protest is a positive. It is a positive overall. It has a positive overall outcome. It helps us, and it's not negative all the time. Nothing is anything all the time. We cannot generalize any action fully. So your friend Rishabh, he also mentioned that protesting can also become violent and vicious because of hormones, and he mentioned his thinking that it is the emotional beliefs within us that make even the peaceful protests turn into violence.
Hitansh, you're over the line, so if you want to wrap up quickly.
Finally address Mr. Agarwal, where he said that you have to be mature enough to protest. And I would like to bring up Sophie Cruz, who is an immigrant who moved to the US, and she spoke with the Pope himself about immigrant rights, and she's 5 years old. Now, if you still believe that maturity is not, if you still believe that maturity is proportional to age, then I'd like you to think again. I'd also like to address his concern really quickly about the motion itself believes that within school there should not be protesting. One thing is that maybe that's not what the motion means. The motion may mean that students who are still undergoing their education should not be allowed to protest. If not, then even protesting in school does not cause any disruption. It's not hampering any education, because anyways there has to be some amount of entertainment that every student has in his her life, and if we cut down on that entertainment, we can do whatever we like, as long as we don't cut down on our studies. I also believe this. So I like to conclude with that protesting doesn't have to be a subject that we need to argue over. It's a basic fundamental right that no one should.
Hitansh, that's all the time we have for you right now. You're way over the line, but that was very entertaining. So I'm actually
just
going
a point
to...
of clarification.
You'll have to wait for your turn, Swam. You'll have to wait for your turn, yeah. Could I ask Yashas, do you have a rebuttal to make?
So yes, sir, as Arpita told that protesting is always bad, but my opinion is that protesting in the right manner for the righteousness, for the decision making, you have to protest, sir, or else you will not get the result to be happened. Like if a student is not protesting and is get adjusting to that, he loses its capacity. If a teacher is not teaching it properly, he can protest, sir. If he didn't protest, there is no value and he cannot gain the knowledge, sir. So in my opinion, that she told it's incorrect. That's it. Thank you.
All right. Well, could I now ask Arpita, do you have a rebuttal to make?
As I use the word politics, and this is because now it is our learning age. What we learn now, what we do now, we will define that in our future. And if we protest now, then surely we will also repeat this in our future and makes us violent, and this makes us violent. And I use the word negative because if we protest now, then slowly we make ourselves negative, and no one never do anything in a reasonable limit. Always they cross their limits. So protest is not solution to any problem. We can also solve in problems with peace and try settle things with peace. Protest is not solution to any problem, and many said that protest makes a person is right to speech is a a fundamental right. But this is not that we will protest for any cause, any useless or any other cause, because right, we cannot use that fundamental rights in a wrong way. And for this generation, today's generation, not understand the real meaning of right to freedom of speech, or right to freedom of expression. They use it in a wrong way. So the best way is to try and settle things in peace. Instead of protesting, we should always be peace. Try and settle things in peace. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Could I quickly ask Sweetie Jain, do you have a rebuttal for us?
Yes, sir. I have my rebuttal.
Go ahead.
I've got some doubts with Arpita. She has been telling that today's generation is much more aggressive. It's not that. Not all the students are aggressive. And next is, I agree. I disagree the points completely, because protesting leads, even through protest only we got our independence. Even Mahatma Gandhi protested the rule of Britishers in violence, with ahimsa. So it is not that protest is every time in a violent way. It can be in the way of peaceful manner also. I don't think that protest always is bad, because when we get sophisticated in our feelings, we feel like no one is listening to us. We get alone. That affects the student mentally, even not only physically but mentally also. Student will not be able to speak, and his mental stability will get decreasing. So I disagree with the point of Arpita. I am sorry if you feel bad, but I disagree, because if you protest, your feelings will get open to everyone. When someone knows your problem, they try to solve it, but not to make it again and again. So thank you.
Thank you. You're very welcome. That was the sweetest and politest disagreement I've ever seen in my life. Could I now ask Rishabh, if you have a rebuttal for us?
Yes, sir. So the first speaker told us about why it is important for students to protest and why opinions need to be shared. But I believe that while voicing our opinions is important, it is more important that the young generation who are going to become the future leaders of our country are not on the path of violence. Like I mentioned, more often than not, through historical examples, protests turn violent. Legally, students are in the clear for protesting. However, we find that, like I mentioned in my constructive speech, they have lots of detrimental effects, contrary to what opposition said. The opposition told us that children develop skills to protesting, but like I said, we find that the opposite happens. Take the protests against the Mandal Commission years ago, around 30 years ago. Several students participated in protests which ultimately turned violent and resulted in deaths as well. This likely affected many of them, even if they were not one of the directly affected people. I would like to elaborate on the right to protest mentioned by some of the opposition speakers. This is, in fact, according to the Indian Constitution, the right to peaceful protest. That I have proven to you through examples, historical examples, that protesting does turn violent more often than not, and with that, so that shows that protests do turn violent, and peaceful protests are allowed. As my colleague said, there is a reason people above 18 are only allowed to vote, and this, I believe, must be extended to protests as well. And I agree with the people who define the legal age for adulthood at 18, and I believe that you can consider a vast majority of people mature only at the age of 18. And so, with that being said, I rest my case. Thank you.
Fantastic. That was on the clock. All right. Could I now ask Ajay? Ajay, if you have a rebuttal for us?
Yeah.
Go right ahead, Ajay.
Firstly, I just want to make it clear that protesting is not only negative. Protesting against something bad is good. A fine example which was given by Sweetie Jain was that, earlier Mahatma Gandhi with many other freedom fighters fought for our freedom, fought for the freedom of our country. Fighting for something, fighting against something bad is good. It is appreciable. This is the era of speakers. We need to promote them. Hence, I would like to tell that right to protest peacefully is good rather than only right to protest. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ajay. That was succinctly put. Could I now ask Arush? Arush, do you have a rebuttal to make?
Yes, I do.
Go right ahead.
Good afternoon. Mr. Agarwal claimed that students are easy to manipulate because they are immature. However, the average student above the age of 13 is capable of making informed decisions and deciding for himself what is right and what is wrong. They are not as easy to manipulate and are capable of deciding for themselves which topics to protest on. He also said that students are too young to protest. 9-year-old Lissy Priya can often be seen protesting against climate change. This clearly shows that age does not affect the eligibility to protest. Mr. Venkat Raghavan said that school is exclusively for education. I agree that school system is exam oriented, but is not democracy and its principles a part of our education? Participating in protests gives us a first-hand experience about the functioning of democracy. It also gives us a deeper understanding about how citizens succeed in getting helpful laws passed. Mr. Agarwal said that students do not have the required skill set to protest. While a freshman in a medical college might not be allowed to prescribe Medicare to people, students in class 8 and above know enough about democracy to protest in an aware and responsible manner. I am not talking about students becoming ministers in a government. This is about learning, about practicing democracy. While young protesters might not be taken as seriously, they do succeed in drawing attention to important subjects. Greta Thunberg started protesting when she was in school. Now, she is one of the most well-known and respected protesters. Formative years in school, if utilized properly, provide us an unbeatable first mover advantage. The world is going to enjoy this advantage. Let us not deny ourselves the same. Ms. Patra said that protests are not the solution to any problem. I disagree. It was only by protesting that we were able to gain freedom from the British. It was only by protesting that we were able to get favorable economic laws passed in 1991. Protests have given farmers the ability to show the government their dissent and anger for the Indian Agriculture Acts of 2020. Lastly, I would like to ask you about what you think is more important, getting a victory royale in Fortnite or participating in demonstrations that wish to change the world for the better. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Arush. I thought that was brilliantly done. It's also fortuitous that most of your points were directed at Mr. Swayam Agarwal. So, Mr. Agarwal, if you will.
Greetings to the house again. My worthy opponent talked about talked about how students are matured enough, but they simply gave us examples of 2-3 people. What I feel is that they are only the exceptions. All fingers are not equal, and those students are actually much more mature than the rest of the students. And when we see the whole student union as a whole, we could actually realize the fact that they are not matured enough, and we are not talking about certain individuals, but the whole student union as a whole. The opposition also talked about expressing feelings and how protest is the only way to do it. Well, no, protest, what the opposition feel is that protest is the last way to go. And we feel that such situations hardly occur in school. Protests are very aggressive, and there are many other ways to express feelings. We can always have certain deliberations with the person personally instead of going on for mass protests around the school, telling everyone about even minute issue. The opponent also talked about school being a threat to students when they not allow them to protest. What the opposition here again feel is that they do this for the betterment of the students only. Students, if they get busy in protest, they would get carried away by it and would actually start doing protests more actively, and therefore not putting much attention to their education and activities, which is sort of more important than protests. So with this, I would like to conclude.
Thank you so much, Swayam. Philip, do you have a rebuttal for us?
Yes, sir.
All right, go ahead, Philip.
I was taking notes while you guys were speaking. I was kind of mesmerized by the things you had. I'm of the opinion that every coin has two sides. Likewise, all things of matter have both good sides and bad sides. Avoiding good as well bad is not appreciated. Hence, I do not agree with the generalization that protest is bad. I'm in the opinion that like a father of nation, We should raise our concerns using ahimsa. We should protest and let our voice be heard. Otherwise, how will people know what we are feeling? I'm saying that we should make our existence known. Thank you.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what. I'm going to let two people speak. I'll give them 30 seconds each. I know Sweetie's got a hand up. Sweetie, would you like to say something?
Yes, sir. I would like to.
Okay,
tell
30
you
seconds.
something. May I?
Yeah, 30 seconds. 30 seconds. Go for it.
So many of my opponents have told that protest affects education. It's not that protest affects education, but when students go out and look at the world, they get to know how the world is. They get a lifetime experience of the world. It is truly said that when a frog is in his well, he thinks that he is the most. But when he goes out, he knows that he is not the most. He's at the bottom point. But when we students go to protest, we get to know what is the world of. So it is a life experience and it is a good thing for students because they are growing. As they grow, they get to know.
All
That's
right.
what I want to tell.
Thank you so much, Sweetie. Rishabh,
Thank you, sir.
30 seconds on the clock.
The opposition told us about why Greta Thunberg has achieved a lot while still continuing her education, but I would like to point out that she took a gap year solely for her activism, so we can't use her example as one for the proposition.
All right. Thank you. I know that Arush has his hand up. Arush, 30 seconds.
So Mr. Agarwal said that the student protesters that I mentioned were exceptions to the rule. While that might be true, but I know quite a few students who are actually protesting. Even in foreign countries, there's people like Alexandria Villasenor and Bana Alabed and various people I know who actively participate in protests and demonstrations. And the students I mentioned are not an exception to the rule. Rather, they are trend setters. We are moving on into the 21st century. We are in 2021 right now. We need to evolve. We need to grow.
All right. And final word, Hitansh, 20 seconds.
So Rishabh mentioned the importance of a resume for the career and the earning in the future, but actually he also mentioned that protests don't actually count in this field, and they don't help in getting a job or securing a title for oneself. But I would like to disagree that there are quite a few there are loads of people that I'm aware of who use protesting and their knowledge of civics and their deep political knowledge and how the world works. Then they use their knowledge to get these jobs. Protesting can indeed be put on a resume, and it can help in the securing of a job or a title.
Thank you so much. And with that, I'm going to have to very quickly pull the reins on this debate, because I know that we can go on and on about it, because, well, part of dissent is also not being able to stop. So thank you very much, guys. I think everybody did fabulously well. I know Diana, I know Rashmi is clapping, I'm clapping, Seema as well. I know Diana is also clapping right there. Adarsh as well. Okay, Adarsh is actually clapping. Congratulations, everybody. I think you did fabulously well. What we're going to do now is I'm going to ask Seema to quickly get on a call with Diana and Adarsh, and they're going to decide our 3 category winners for the day. Seema, if you will. Okay. So, guys, if you remember, for those of you with the orientation, you know that the winners and the runners-up of this debate will be decided based on 3 components: marking by our first judge, our second judge, and by the number of online votes you get, which will be a weighted average mean. That's a total of 100 marks, and that will decide who goes straight through to our finale. The winner goes straight through, and from our runners-up, 2 wildcards will make it right through to the finals. All right. What we are doing is, for every debate, we have 3 awards: 1 for the finest point, which is the best point made during the debate; 2 for the best rebuttal, that's called counter-strike; and 3, well, it's called the light side, but it's also for the most humorous, the most inventive or innovative speaker. So those are the 3 awards that our judges are deliberating over. So give us a couple of minutes, grab a glass of water. As soon as they come back, we're going to announce those 3 awards. All right. Thank you, guys.
It was a really tough call because, trust me, everybody was good. And, you and I were talking earlier, you suddenly start thinking whether we were as good as them when we were in their age, and you suddenly start this inferiority complex creeping inside you because you know you feel you're not as good as them to judge these guys because these guys were really good. So yeah, I think we're ready. So I'll allow Seema to take over. I mean,
Actually, between you and Diana, why don't you guys announce the three winners for the day?
okay. So can I give a quick feedback for everybody?
Yeah. 1 minute. I'm giving you 1 minute on the clock.
Okay, 1 minute. Okay. Where's Rashmi? Rashmi, 1 minute. Rashmi. Okay. So guys, this was my feedback to all of you. So I'm going to be your devil's advocate here. I'm going to be the guy who's it's like roadies kind of a thing where I'm going to give you your critical points because I've already told all of you are fantastic. All of you are really good. You know, there's no denying that. So quickly, Hitansh, I felt that you were very slow. Okay, it was more like you were beating around the bush. It came across like as if you were very scripted, and your losing points is basically being very elaborate and too long because even during your rebuttal, it so happened that it was very tough for me to be attentive towards you. I felt okay, this guy is going round and round the merry-go-round. So I think you need to be very crisp and. If you get that sorted, I think you're going to really rock it going forward, right? So that is my feedback to you. Yashas, if you're online, you were adjusting your tie so many times that it very clearly said that you were nervous. It was more like you were trying to check whether your tie was fitted properly and whether all your attention was on that. I do understand that nervousness is natural for people, but when you're doing it on video, when you're doing it in front of so many people unconsciously, it automatically gives your opponents an edge because they feel that you're anyway nervous, and it's just that if they have to push you over, they're going to win. So you're making people actually understand that you're very vulnerable, right? Philip, too many broken gaps, but I will definitely give you points for bouncing back, coming back online, and uh, getting back into the race, right? I mean, Daniel and me, like, I think you were the guy whom we all, I mean, Daniel, Diana, me, we all were like very excited to have Philip back inside the mix, like, okay. And Arpita, yes, very good link to protesting. One thing I really, really appreciate is that you were very prepared, the way you had stood up, the way you had adjusted the camera so that even when you were standing, it was not like we were just looking at you half. So your preparation was excellent. You were very confident. Your body language was very good. Your gestures, you nailed it with your gestures. And Sweetie, like it was more like you were always focusing on the point of being, sophisticated, and people were being very entitled because I was trying to find out what sophisticated actually meant to you because, I mean, of course, I don't want the answer. I do understand where you're coming from. But when you're keeping on telling that sophisticated people, you're sophisticated, you're not sophisticated, when you keep using a single word, people around you will start to feel that you have something against people who are sophisticated, or you have something against people who are not so sophisticated. What I'm trying to say is when you're fixated on a word, it kind of puts across a message saying that you either hate them or you're too attracted to them, right? So I would maybe ask you to use more words, improve your choice of vocabulary and not be stuck around a single word. Okay, so yeah, time is flying. Yeah, Rashmi is giving me looks. Okay, Danny too. Sweetie is done. Rishabh, excellent material. You've put in a lot of work. Your rebuttal was excellent. Your vocabulary was good. I love the way that you said opposition speaker and not naming names, but you lost it out on body language and gestures because your gestures was zero. So if you work on that, I'm sure you're going to rock it again. Ajay, good, but Ajay, to be very honest, I have to tell you, you sounded very artificial. You sounded like very paced, like somebody said, okay, 1 step, 2 step, 3 step kind of a thing. You were not very natural is what I felt, but definitely you brought up excellent points like bullying and social issues, etc. Arush, body language and gestures was where you lost it out, but your rebuttal points were excellent. But my critical view would be like I kind of felt that like you're more like a newsreader rather than a person who was like very natural. Though your vocabulary was excellent, so newsreaders have excellent vocabulary. I felt you were a little fast. That is what I'm trying to come across when I say newsreader. So I think you had to pace yourself a little bit better. Swayam, excellent maturity when it comes to points. You summed it up very well, so that is definitely there. Brunal, yes, I'll give you super points for attempting because you were off and on, off and on. So yeah.
Diana, could I ask you to make our announcement of our 3 awards for the day?
As far as observations go, I completely agree with Adarsh on each and every student who participated. Congratulations, everyone.
So finest point is Rishabh. Congratulations to you, Rishabh. You really rocked the show today.
Rishabh, congratulations.
Counter-Strike, Arush, good going. Again, only thing that you had to focus on was your body language. And lighter side, I think the lighter side we are going to give it to Hitansh because Hitansh, we definitely did see a little bit of humor, but I think the way you pulled it out wasn't up to the mark, but I'm sure you guys will get there because
I thought it was extremely entertaining the way Hitansh began. I was laughing all the way to the bank. Well, congratulations to 3 of you. All 3 of you get 1,000 rupee gift vouchers from our gift partner link. I hope you enjoy all that stationery. Thank you so much for being a part of this. Thank you so much, Adarsh. Thank you so much, Diana, for being here. And don't ever forget to keep debating. Debating is a way of life. Debating can be the way to a better life as well. All the best. Take care. Stay safe, you guys. And thank you for being a part of the New Indian Express's Let's Debate.
Hindustan Institute of Technology and Science. Take your first step toward a future in excellence.
Every kid has a great story to tell. Have one? Well, we're listening. Send your best story to the New Indian Express's Bookworm Junior Summer Stories Contest and you could just end up becoming an author over the summer. What are you waiting for?